In the dim light of Nexus Station's grand observatory, James Walker stood silhouetted against the vast star-filled void. The swirling galaxies and pulsating nebulas painted a backdrop of cosmic ballet, yet his eyes betrayed a storm, mirroring the turmoil that brewed 1,000 light-years away. As the lead human diplomat on the station, James had walked into what was supposed to be a routine negotiation, only to intercept a covert transmission meant for his Kryloth counterpart, a whisper of an impending betrayal that could destabilize the precarious balance of interstellar relations. The station thrummed with the lifeblood of 1,000 different species, each corridor echoing with the symphony of intergalactic diplomacy. Vibrant banners of the Galactic Collective fluttered alongside holograms of peace treaties and trade pacts. Here, in the heart of political intrigue, cultures converged. Nexus Station was not just a meeting place, but a melting pot where ideas and ideologies competed under the guise of unity. James navigated the crowded promenade with a practiced ease, his senses attuned to the undercurrents of alien dialects and the subtle shift in the air that spoke of hidden agendas. The scent of ozone mingled with the exotic spices from the market stalls, creating a fragrance that was as intoxicating as it was unnerving. He passed by a group of Arquillian traders, their luminescent skin casting a soft glow on the ancient stone relics they bartered, each artifact whispering secrets of forgotten worlds. But today James's diplomatic mask hid a turbulent mind. The intercepted message had been stark, a cold harbinger of plots woven in shadow. It spoke of a gathering storm, one that threatened not just the humans but the fragile tapestry of galactic peace. His heart raced as he considered the weight of his next steps. Trust was currency here, and betrayal, a dagger that cut deeper than any blade. As he approached the council chambers, the towering doors etched with the histories of 100 planets, he felt the weight of his predecessors' legacies on his shoulders. Inside, the future of humanity would be debated, shaped and perhaps, if he failed, condemned. With each step he fortified himself, ready to parry with words instead of weapons, a dance as deadly as any fought in the void of space. His communicator buzzed discreetly. A message from his advisor, "All set for tomorrow, James. Remember, the eyes of the stars are upon you." He pocketed the device, straightened his jacket, and stepped into the light that spilled from the open doors. Here, in the nexus of power, James Walker would need to be more than just a diplomat. He would need to be a guardian of humanity's fate. As the heavy doors closed behind him, sealing him in with the fates of many, the echoes of the past mingled with the whispers of the future. James knew that from this moment on, every word he spoke could either bridge galaxies or burn them. The story of humanity's place among the stars was yet to be written, and he was holding the pen. The stage was set, the players aligned, and as the first debates of the day began, James readied himself for the chess game of cosmic proportions. The story of Nexus Station, and indeed of all human diplomatic efforts within the Galactic Collective, was one of fragile alliances and fierce determination. Here, amidst the grandeur of interspecies politics, James Walker would forge humanity's legacy, one negotiation at a time. In the sequestered quarters of the Kryloth warship, that loomed like a dormant beast outside Nexus Station, Staler, the imposing war strategist, reviewed holographic data screens that floated before him like specters of war. Each screen flickered with potential moves and countermoves, a galaxy-wide game of deceit and domination. The air was thick with the heavy scent of ionized metal, common in Kryloth architecture, which always seemed to whisper of impending battles. Staler's quarters were a stark contrast to the vibrant and open diplomatic spaces of Nexus Station. Here, shadows clung to the walls as if part of the decor, and the light was always dim, echoing the secrecy of his plans. His personal chamber was lined with artifacts of conquest, a silent testament to the Kryloth's militaristic achievements. Among these, the most prominent was a fragmented emblem of a vanquished alien race, serving both as a trophy and a grim reminder of the Kryloth's brutal history of subjugation. Outside his window, the endless void of space stretched into eternity, punctuated by the occasional streak of a passing comet or the distant glow of a star being born. But Staler's gaze was inward, focused intensely on the task at hand. His next move against the humans had to be precise, calculated to stir discord and mistrust among the collective. Meanwhile, back on Nexus Station, James Walker convened a secretive meeting with his closest advisors in a seldom-used maintenance corridor, dimly lit and lined with pipes that hummed with the life support systems of the station. The atmosphere here was starkly utilitarian, a sharp departure from the opulent council chambers, a fitting setting for discussions that could not afford the luxury of daylight or open spaces. "Are we certain of Staler's intentions?" James asked, his voice low as he examined the datapad handed to him by David, his chief advisor. The pad displayed intercepted communications and suspicious troop movements on the borders of human-occupied space. David nodded, his face grim. "Everything points to a significant escalation. Staler's planning something big, something that could potentially embarrass us in front of the entire collective." James rubbed his chin thoughtfully, feeling the weight of each decision. "We need more information. We can't move against Staler without irrefutable proof. It would only play into his narrative that humans are paranoid and militaristic." As they plotted their next steps, the corridor seemed to close in around them, the walls echoing with the low hum of the station's engines and the distant muffled sounds of the cosmopolitan hustle outside. It was a reminder of how delicate their position was, surrounded by alien cultures, any of whom might turn against them if the winds of politics shifted unfavorably. The meeting ended with a plan to discreetly gather more intelligence and strengthen their alliances with other species through subtle diplomacy. As his team dispersed, James lingered for a moment, feeling the isolation of his role. Leadership was a lonely path, especially on the frontier of human expansion. As James walked back to the more populated areas of the station, he passed through the Grand Bazaar, a bustling marketplace that served as the cultural heart of Nexus Station. Here, the air was rich with the aromas of exotic spices and the cacophony of 100 languages filled the air, a stark contrast to the silence of his secret meeting. It was a vivid reminder of what was at stake, not just the survival of human interests, but the peace and prosperity of the entire galactic collective. He paused by a vendor selling rare star maps, the ancient charts sprawling across the stall like spiderwebs connecting the dots of distant suns. It was a visual metaphor for his own mission, navigating through the intricate web of interstellar politics, where every star, every planet, held potential allies or enemies. With a deep breath, James steeled himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that each step he took could alter the course of human history in the cosmos. The air in Nexus Station's diplomatic wing was charged with an undercurrent of tension, so palpable it could almost be mistaken for the electric hum of the station's vast energy systems. James Walker, moving with the calm resolve that had become his trademark, entered the reception hall where a diplomatic gala was underway. The hall was a masterpiece of interstellar architecture, with walls of translucent material that showcased a breathtaking panorama of the cosmos, stars twinkling against the void like distant beacons of hope. Tonight the hall was alive with the glittering array of the galaxy's elite, representatives of myriad races mingling in a dance of diplomacy. The air was filled with a symphony of languages, the clink of glasses, and the soft swish of silken garments. Here, alliances were formed in whispers, and rivalries were cloaked in the polite applause of gloved hands. Amidst this ballet of subtleties, James was a conductor, his tools persuasion and tact. James approached a cluster of diplomats from the Tari cluster, their skin shimmering with the bioluminescent glow of their home world's ambient flora. With a diplomat's grace, he initiated conversations, weaving through topics of trade and cultural exchanges, subtly gauging their stance on recent events. Each interaction was a careful step in a broader strategy to build a coalition, a shield of united species against any forthcoming storms. As the evening progressed, James orchestrated a private meeting in one of the station's secluded gardens, a haven of green in the metal and glass world of the station. The garden was a quiet, verdant space, filled with the flora of 100 worlds, a place where the air was always a little fresher, scented with the sweet perfume of Zeltrian vines. Here, under the guise of enjoying the rare tranquility, James met with Ambassador William, a key ally from the peaceful planet of Vion. William, a being of serene countenance and insightful eyes, greeted James with a nod of his elongated head. "James, the currents are shifting," he murmured, his voice a low blend of concern and caution. "I fear that what you suspect about the Krylloth may indeed be true. There have been whispers ripples across many waters." James listened intently, his mind racing as he absorbed the gravity of William's words. "We need to solidify our stance, gather support. If Staler is plotting to undermine us, we must be ready, not just with defenses, but with a counter-narrative strong enough to hold in the assembly." William agreed, his gaze drifting to the bioluminescent blooms that softly lit the shadowy paths of the garden. "I will stand with you, James. It is time the collective saw the strength of unity against the winds of discord sown by the Krylloth." The meeting set in motion a series of discreet communications across Nexus Station. James, with renewed urgency, reached out to other delegates, sharing veiled concerns over stability and peace. Each message was coded, each meeting wrapped in layers of diplomacy, but the underlying message was clear: it was time to unite. Meanwhile, in the darker corners of the station, away from the luminescent glow of the gala and the quiet peace of the gardens, Staler's agents moved with stealth. They intercepted communications, monitored movements, and reported back to their commander, their actions as silent as the void outside the station's walls. The chapter of alliance building was a delicate dance on a razor's edge, with James and his allies weaving a tapestry of cooperation that they hoped would be strong enough to counter the dark designs of the Krylloth. As the station spun silently in space, its inhabitants oblivious to the machinations of their leaders, the seeds of a great confrontation were sown, ready to burst forth and change the course of galactic history. As James retired to his quarters late that night, the weight of the galaxy seemed to rest on his shoulders. But in his heart, there burned a quiet fire, stoked by the promise of unity and the enduring spirit of human determination. The storm was gathering, but so was the resolve of those who would stand against it. The Grand Assembly Chamber at Nexus Station was a colossal amphitheater, its architecture a harmonious blend of countless cultural influences, symbolizing the unity of the galactic collective. Towering columns inscribed with the scripts of 1,000 languages spiraled up to a transparent dome, through which the tapestry of the cosmos could be witnessed, a constant reminder of the shared heritage and vulnerability of all life under the stars. Today, however, the chamber was charged with an electric tension, as delegates from across the galaxy filled the tiered seats, their murmurs echoing like distant thunder. The air was thick with anticipation and the weight of impending decisions. At the heart of the chamber, a circular dais awaited the day's speakers, the lighting above it casting a solemn glow on the polished surface. James Walker entered the chamber with a composed demeanor, his eyes scanning the gathered crowd, noting the clusters of allies and the pockets of undecided representatives. Each face was a world unto itself, a bearer of hopes and fears, of political calculations and the survival of their peoples. He found his seat among the human delegation, his mind meticulously reviewing every piece of evidence, every planned word of his forthcoming argument. The session began with the traditional ceremonial greetings, a colorful and sonorous parade of cultural expressions meant to foster a sense of camaraderie and respect among the diverse members. Yet beneath the surface, the stakes were higher than ever. Today the assembly would address the escalating tensions stirred by hidden forces, the whispers of war that had begun to circulate like sinister shadows. Staler was among the last to make his entrance, his towering figure clad in the militaristic regalia of the Krylloth Empire. His eyes, sharp and calculating, swept over the assembly, pausing with a barely perceptible stillness on James. As he took his place, the ambient whispers seemed to hush. The assembly sensed the brewing storm. When the floor opened for debate, Staler was quick to rise, his voice resonant and commanding as he addressed the chamber. With a masterful blend of rhetoric and manipulated data, he presented his case against the humans, painting them as aggressors amassing secret fleets, threatening the balance of power. His words were a poison wrapped in the silk of concern, his evidence a series of communications and movements, all deceptively interpreted to frame humanity as a looming threat. James listened, his expression unreadable, while around him he could feel the shift of uncertainty, the seeds of doubt being sown among the assembly. When it was his turn to speak, he rose, the weight of countless hopes anchoring his resolve. "Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed beings of the Galactic Collective," James began, his voice clear and resonant, reaching out to every corner of the chamber. "We stand here today at a crossroads, not just of politics but of truth. The accusations leveled against humanity are grave indeed, but they are also false." Step by step, James dismantled Staler's arguments, using a combination of hard evidence, intercepted communications from Kryloth operatives, and testimonials from allied species who spoke of human efforts for peace and cooperation. His delivery was calm yet passionate, appealing not only to the intellect, but to the conscience of his listeners. As he spoke, the chamber's atmosphere shifted subtly. Skepticism mingled with intrigue, and the tide of opinion began to turn. James's words, underscored by the credibility of his evidence, painted a different picture, one of unity threatened by deceit and manipulation. The climax of the session came when James unveiled a series of encrypted messages between Staler and his closest commanders, obtained through a risky operation by his intelligence team. These messages detailed plans not only to discredit the humans, but to use the ensuing chaos as a cover for taking aggressive actions against other vulnerable species. As the evidence was displayed for all to see, the chamber erupted into a cacophony of outrage, disbelief, and the stirring of action. Staler, his composure finally breaking, stood defiant, but the assembly's reaction was clear. The tide had turned. By the time the session adjourned, the landscape of galactic politics had shifted. Alliances were strengthened, and new ones formed, as representatives united in their stand against the subversive tactics of the Kryloth. James exited the chamber with a mixture of relief and wariness. Today, he had gambled much, but gained even more. As the stars witnessed the unfolding drama through the chamber's transparent dome, they shone a little brighter, a silent chorus to the enduring spirit of cooperation that had for now prevailed. After the seismic shifts of the assembly, Nexus Station seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief, yet beneath its calm exterior, the wheels of strategy and alliance continued to turn with renewed urgency. James Walker, now more than ever, was aware of the fragile tapestry of trust and cooperation he needed to weave to safeguard not just human interests, but the stability of the entire galactic collective. The days following the assembly were a whirlwind of diplomatic engagements. James, with little time to savor his victory, plunged into a series of negotiations, his schedule an endless stream of meetings, virtual calls, and strategy sessions. The diplomatic suites of Nexus Station, rooms designed for comfort and confidentiality, became his arenas. In one such suite, with walls that displayed serene landscapes from Earth to soothe the high-stress atmosphere, James met with representatives from the Zephyrian sectors, whose support had been crucial in the assembly. These avian-like creatures, with their feathered crests and keen eyes, were not just allies but pivotal figures in the galactic trade routes. Their agreement to enhance surveillance along their sectors would be vital in monitoring Kryloth movements and ensuring that Staler's militaristic ambitions were kept in check. "Your support has been indispensable," James told them, his tone genuine and appreciative. "Together, we can ensure that the peace we've fought so hard to maintain will endure." As the Zephyrians nodded in agreement, their feathers shimmering with the colors of agreement and solidarity, James felt a piece of the larger puzzle click into place. Each alliance forged was a step towards a more secure galaxy, a buffer against the chaos that Staler had hoped to unleash. Meanwhile, outside the formal meetings, James's team worked tirelessly to gather intelligence and fortify network defenses. The tech wing of the station buzzed with activity, screens alight with data streams and digital maps of the galaxy. Here young officers from various species collaborated, their discussions a blend of technical jargon and strategic planning, all under the watchful eye of David, James's chief advisor. The Krylloth are quiet, too quiet, David mused one afternoon, his gaze locked on a live feed of sector movements. We need to be ready for anything. Staler won't take his defeat at the assembly lying down. He was right. Within days their vigilance paid off. A covert signal, intercepted from a remote Krylloth outpost, revealed a planned strike against a minor but strategically located planet, an action that would violate several treaties and reignite regional tensions. Armed with this information, James convened an emergency session with the Collective Security Council, presenting the evidence with precision and urging immediate action. The Council, still reeling from the revelations at the Assembly, acted with uncharacteristic speed. Resolutions were passed, patrols were increased, and a message was sent, not just to Staler, but to all who watched and waited for the Collective's response, that acts of aggression would not go unchecked. As the crisis was averted, James found a rare moment of quiet in the station's arboretum, a vast dome filled with greenery and soft, natural light. Walking among the whispering leaves and fragrant blooms, he reflected on the turbulent weeks past. The stakes had never been higher, and yet, amidst the chaos, there was a burgeoning sense of hope. He stood there for a long time, letting the tranquility of the space wash over him, a stark contrast to the cold metal and relentless pace of the rest of the station. It was moments like these, brief and fleeting, that reminded him of why he fought so hard, why he believed so deeply in the cause of peace. As he left the arboretum, the weight of responsibility settled back onto his shoulders, comfortable and familiar. The battle was far from over, but they were better prepared. The alliance is stronger and more resilient than ever. Nexus Station, a beacon of unity in the vastness of space, continued its vigil, its inhabitants resolute in their commitment to a future where diplomacy triumphed over war. The story of humanity's place in the galaxy was still being written, and James Walker, with each careful step, each hard-won victory, was helping to pen a narrative of endurance, diplomacy, and hope. As the first light of the galaxy's twin suns pierced the darkness of space, casting a golden hue over Nexus Station, it marked the dawn of a new era. The station, a symphony of steel and light, hummed with the activity of its diverse inhabitants, each moving with a renewed sense of purpose. The recent upheavals had shaken the foundations of the Galactic Collective, but from that turbulence emerged a strengthened resolve to forge a future defined by unity and peace. James Walker stood before the massive viewport in his office, watching as a convoy of diplomatic vessels from distant worlds approached the station. Today, Nexus Station would host the inaugural session of the United Galactic Council, a new body formed in the wake of recent conflicts, dedicated to fostering cooperation and preempting aggression. As the architect of this new alliance, James felt a blend of pride and daunting responsibility. The Grand Council chamber had been redesigned for the occasion. The once stark amphitheater was now a vibrant tapestry of cultural expressions, with banners representing each member species hanging from the vaulted ceiling, fluttering gently in the circulated air. The chamber buzzed with the voices of delegates, discussing in myriad tongues, their tones imbued with optimism. James's speech was the cornerstone of the day's agenda. As he took to the podium, the chamber fell into a respectful silence, every eye upon him. He cleared his throat, his voice resonant as it carried across the room. Today, we stand at the threshold of a new chapter in our shared history. James began, his gaze sweeping over the assembly. The challenges we have faced were not merely obstacles but opportunities. Opportunities to demonstrate our commitment to peace, to prove that unity is not a fragile dream but a resilient reality. He spoke of the trials they had endured, the manipulations and mistrust they had overcome. He commended the bravery of those who had stood firm in the face of deception, and the foresight of those who had extended hands of friendship across cosmic divides. His words were not just a recounting of past events, but a clarion call for continued vigilance and collaboration. As James concluded, the applause was thunderous, echoing off the chamber walls and reverberating through the station. It was a sound of collective strength, of diverse peoples united by a common goal. The rest of the day was a blur of motions and resolutions, of speeches and signings. New treaties were drafted, and defense pacts were formed, each decision a stitch in the fabric of their collective security. Staler, now a shadow of his former self, watched from his delegation's corner, his schemes undone but his resolve unbroken. His presence served as a stark reminder that peace was a garden that needed constant tending. As the session adjourned, James retreated to the solitude of the station's observation deck, a quiet zone with panoramic views of the endless expanse of space. Here, amidst the stars that had witnessed the birth of civilizations and the demise of empires, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. The challenges ahead would be many. The peace they had secured was delicate, its maintenance requiring constant diligence. But as he stood there, gazing out at the cosmos, James felt a deep, unshakable confidence in the resilience of the alliances they had built. Humanity, once underestimated, had shown itself to be a formidable force for peace. Turning from the viewport, James's communicator chimed a message from an old friend on Earth, congratulating him on the day's successes. Smiling, James typed a quick response before looking back at the stars one last time. They seemed to twinkle back at him, as if in approval. He knew then, with a clarity as bright as the stars themselves, that while the road ahead was uncharted and undoubtedly fraught with challenges, they were no longer walking it alone. Nexus Station, a beacon of hope and cooperation, would continue to shine brightly in the darkness of space, guiding the way forward. As he left the observation deck, the weight of the past lifted, replaced by the promise of tomorrow. James walked back into the bustling corridors of Nexus Station, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold, guided by the light of the new dawn they had all worked so hard to see rise.